Welcome back to Metropole TV. This is Business AM. My name is Zindiro Kanga. I'm standing in for Elijah Charles Simba Kiege. Time now to have our first interview, but before that, let's lay some context to it. COVID-19 has hit world industries and sectors hard. Now, in addition to staggering business struggle, job cuts, and closures, the pandemic has, however, also compelled a much-needed breakdown of long-held orthodoxies about where and how employees work, extending to even as much as avoided areas of who an employee is to a company. Born out of the COVID-19 pandemic and what has becoming viewed as overdue necessity, this shifts in how work is done has given business leaders a chance to throw away the old employment playbook. Locally, companies like Workforce Kenya are presenting a new way to labor solutions in an environment that has been forced to reshape its forms now. This morning, to discuss this concept, the Managing Director, Workforce Africa, Christopher Karanja, joins us on Business AM. Christopher, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. Now, let's just begin with what kind of disruption have you as Workforce sort of experienced and interacted with in the workforce sector in the country? What sort of shift has COVID-19 brought about?
Yeah. I think the main thing that companies are experiencing right now is trying to adapt to different employee expectations. Some of these concepts were already there, but for sure, COVID has almost fast-tracked these changes. I'll give you an example. One of the changes is working from home. So whereas it was there for a few companies, a lot of people are having to continue to work from home, and companies are having to adjust to that particular transition.
Now, why is this the sort of conversation that is very important and timely to have now, particularly 1 year into the COVID-19 and the uncertainty surrounding the extent of the virus and when it will end?
So for companies to survive at this particular time, companies are having to adjust to these changes. Previously, we would have seen situations like situations of flexible labor, where, for instance, companies are outsourcing their work to companies. That has been existing, is still ongoing. But other newer aspects, like, say, for instance, freelancing. So companies are struggling with how do we still access talent in this market? How do we still access that person who is not able to come to the office by one reason or the other? So they are having to adopt these particular transitions actually out of necessity, and that is what is actually pushing these trends to come to the fore faster than they would have expected.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something very pertinent that I want to pick up, freelancing, or as it's called, gig economy. Many companies are being forced to cut down on their labor because of cost, but the services that they need will still remain put. For example, say communication, some of these companies have had to cut down the whole communication department, but communication is still a very pertinent part, which they're now being forced to outsource some of this. Talk to us about that shift that we are seeing in gig economy and how companies can embrace that.
Yeah, so freelancing is actually, when companies get to use it, is not complicated. So it's actually an option where companies are able to access talent faster. And actually even more diverse talent. We are seeing more and more people getting into the freelancing space. So I was actually reading a report basically saying that most of the freelancing talent out there, a huge percentage is coming from Africa, although the companies that are actually using this talent are not in-house or are not in Africa. So it's really for local companies to start adopting this particular trend and start picking it as one of the sources of talent that they can tap into, and just start trusting in technology. So one of the main prerequisites of freelancing is that the projects that you give the freelancer must be 100% clear. So that is for me, and that's as Workforce Africa, that is one of the challenges we are trying to help companies with, that have to really define the project that these freelancers are supposed to do. Then that way they're able to reap the benefits of having an experienced freelancer to come in and do for them their work.
Now, how is Workforce Africa sourcing for data that will be used as a working tool under this model in business transformation and HR strategy?
Well, to be honest, Kenyans are looking for jobs. So if you advertise that you're looking for someone, if you advertise that you're looking for someone to actually do a job for you, and you put it through a freelancer platform, people will apply. So in terms of getting data for freelancers, we are basically getting it through applications. The only thing we are trying to help our candidates with is, whereas historically they would apply jobs through traditional CVs that outlines their experiences and their experiences and the areas they have worked in, the freelancer application focuses on your skill. So what exactly can you do? So yes, you have a CV, but can you break it down into the skills that you can actually do? Then it makes it easier for a company looking for an auditor, for instance, to be able to really pick out these particular skills from this platform and get the right person for that particular job. So that's how we are sourcing the data.
From all the applications that you see and you receive on a daily basis, what are some of the sectors that hold great potential and opportunities for freelancing gigs?
In the future, I'll be optimistic. I would say everything. You can consult on a freelancer on everything technically, but at the moment, the sectors that are having a bit more activity towards this, even that have actually had before, are areas like IT and technology. People like programmers and software developers, they have done this for a while. Design fields are taking it up quite a lot. Other I would say traditional fields that are coming up are the likes of finance, where we are able to actually define tasks, and also areas like even some areas like engineering, and areas that can actually be delivered through consulting work.
Now, is the market ready? We'll go to the labor force in a minute, but is the market ready for this concept? Is it receptive? Is it open? And is it paying?
Not 100%, but it definitely needs to. So one of the challenges that companies are struggling with is sometimes you can't see a freelancer or face-to-face in some of the cases. So there's still a lot of us who really want to see the person that is doing the job. So that's one of the hindrances. The other hindrances is a clarity around putting together the package of the job. They're just making sure that the freelancer really understands the job. So we definitely will need some capability around that. And then the other challenge is really around, how do I pay this person? How do I, if I package a project that is 1 week long, how much am I supposed to pay that person? So putting together these packages and making sure they are relevant, and even having some sort of rationale on how those payment structures are put together. These are some of the areas that companies are struggling with. To be honest, they are not averse to the ideas. It's just that the clarity and the capability needs to be created to make it, to help us move from the traditional month-end payment and job description kind of work to more project-defined work.
And I like what you said, because the paradigm shift has to happen in both sides, in both the employer's perspective and the employee's perspective. Naturally, we've been tailored to know a job is permanent employment. You have a contract, you're on a retainer, it's 8 to 5,
Yes.
you have an office if you're lucky, and a desk. Are Kenyans also willing to sort of change the way they think about work? Because when we think about gigs or freelancing, it's a side thing away from my day job, or it's just a thing I'm doing before I get a permanent job. Christopher, Okay, I'll take that again. You'd rightfully mentioned that a paradigm shift needs to take place in the employer's perspective, but in retrospect, also employees need to shift the way they think. Because if you look at the Kenyan culture and even the African culture, we know that you finish school, you get a job, permanent employment or contractual basis, 3 years contract, 5-year contract, 8 to 5, you go to the office, you work. If you're doing freelance, it's a side thing, or it's just a temporary thing that you're doing before you get a permanent job. So what do we need to do to fully embrace the opportunities that are available with regards to freelance as the people who are looking for these opportunities?
I lost you quite a bit there.
I'm just saying, how can we also, as employees or people, change our perspective and perceptions of freelance work so we can be able to fully embrace it, not just as a side thing or as a temporary thing before I get a job, as my main job, as in my main job as a journalist is to do communication consultancy for various firms.
No, that's a valid point. So, it's a shift in mindset, I think. People need to gradually shift and see the benefit of actually freelancing work or project-based work. Some of the advantages of freelancing work is that you get to work with multiple companies, so you have more varied experience. You can do multiple projects at a go. So even from a remuneration point of view, it could actually be better. So, but then historically we have been used to, we have gotten used to monthly jobs. We have structured our lives around getting a monthly income and even our bills around monthlies. So it's just a shift in mindset. Just the same way it happens from employment into entrepreneurship, it's the same way that gradually people need to shift from, I would call it traditional employment to more project-based kind of work.
Mm-hmm. Most of the time, projects pay better than full-time employment, though there's that inconsistency, and you can mention that as you answer this question. However, there's also another inconsistency which comes in terms of pay. I have a friend of mine who does communication consultancy, and he says, getting a client is a hustle. Delivering your job, then you do it to the best of your ability so that you can retain this client. And then the real trouble begins of sending invoices and invoices and invoices. For 6 months, somebody hasn't paid you your money.
So it's different, actually. It's different from normal consulting because that is where these freelancing apps come in. So I'll give an example. Like Workforce Africa, what we have done is have a platform called Pandit, Pandit Space. So basically what Pandit does is that it will go out and find opportunities. So we will work with companies, they will come and list their jobs in our website. Then the people who will have applied or would have put their profiles to the website would be able to access these particular opportunities. They would get them. We obviously do the vetting process to find the right person. But once the project has been done and it has been finished, it is the role of Pandit to pay the client or to pay the freelancer. Then Pandit as a company is left following up the invoices with the business that put the project in the first place. So we don't have a client or a freelancer being the one writing invoices and following up this person. That is the role of the freelancing platform, and that happens globally. So if you look at global platforms, the likes of Upwork or Freelancer, that is what exactly they do. They consolidate the project, they get the freelancers to access the projects, and they process the payments for the freelance.
So I think what you're saying, as much as we haven't 100% adopted it, is we need to create some form of formalization into the freelance and gig economy so that it's not just one person reaching to the other. There's a third medium which creates some sort of professionalism in how we deal with each other.
Yes, and I can tell you the employees or the freelancer in this case are ready. It's just from the company's point of view, where I think they need to be more open to projects, to having their work done through projects, to also seeing the advantage of diversity. We talk about diversity and inclusion all the time. So this is one of the ways where you can bring diversity of knowledge, a diversity of skill, and even diversity of location from opportunities like freelancing that can get people to contribute to the organization and possibly to a better benefit.
Okay, now let's make this a little bit personal and intimate for the viewer who might be watching at home, or even for me. I mean,
Yeah.
journalist by profession, communication consultancy on the side, digital strategy. How do I position myself in the market so that I can be able to get freelance gigs and gigs that relate with my field and that pay me well, and also consistent gigs? Like, what skills do I need and how do I package myself? And not just communication. What's the generic mode of packaging yourself if you're to be in freelance and it works for you?
All right. So, good question. So, two ways. The first step is to, first of all, which is clear for you, is to figure out which area someone is in. So, not everyone is as clear. So, that's the first step. Once you have really pinpointed, and this is where
give it a practical example. Pick one sector and give it a practical example.
So I'll give you an example of maybe technology. Let me try with a programmer. Yeah. So it has to be very clear that, say, for instance, someone is going to do programming, and if they're going to do programming, they're probably going to use JavaScript. Yeah. So they are clear on that. So they should go out and research a little bit more. What are these other related programs that are relevant? When I get a JavaScript project, what is a client possibly going to ask me to do next? And this is where the importance of mentorship conversations happens in. Speak to someone who has done it before. Let them give you a few insights on how it's done. That's the first step. The second step is to pick out how to develop this particular skill. So there's a lot of opportunities, even online, where someone can actually go out and develop a skill. And the reason I'm saying this is so that we do not only, or the viewer doesn't only think that you have to go and do a 3-year degree or a diploma to be able to get this skill. So you can go to the multitude of online platforms, identify the skills. Once you have identified the skills that you want to develop, and actually develop that particular skill. Then on that part of skill, I want to also add that the skill is both technical and soft skill. So you have also to figure out, as an individual, what is this area that I really want to do technically, but also what are these skills that will make me marketable. So if I'm a developer, for instance, and I know my communication skills are a bit wanting from the previous projects I have done, go and do that particular soft skill. So then you bring yourself as a package, yeah, and seek for feedback. So then you are able to get to know that you have the relevant experience. So once you have done that, then you identify several freelancer platforms. You go out and post those particular skills that you have, whether it is JavaScript, a Node, so different skills that you have, the programming competencies that you have. Once you have put that, then it's also to use your other medias to also put your profile out there, whether it is LinkedIn, profiles like LinkedIn, and now start reaching out to companies. So as the freelancer platform is also seeking for opportunities and helping you profile for jobs, you can also on the side package yourself in such that when those opportunities come through, you're able to easily access them. And don't use one freelancer platform. You can use several because they are there. Yeah, and the last point is that once you actually land on the job, do it well. So then, because it almost like works like a referral framework. So if you do a job well and the company rates you properly, it's very likely that they're going to refer you or give you a repeat project.
But quick one, you've mentioned LinkedIn. There was a time a conversation went viral on Facebook and even Twitter that people rarely get gigs from these platforms. I mean, like, you update it, it's always on point, you apply for these jobs, but hakuna, nothing.
Yeah, LinkedIn is more from a personal point of view. Yeah, so recruiters obviously will go to LinkedIn to find the right profile, but personally, I look at LinkedIn as a way to package yourself, so that then if I'm looking for a freelancer, if as a recruiter, I can tell you, I will not just go to Fundit. I will go to Fundit, find the person, but I will also go to LinkedIn. to just check what are the wider experiences that they have. Remember, like I mentioned, most of the cases you find freelancer platform are focused on skill. So a proper LinkedIn profile helps you to package the full self. Which are these companies that I've worked in? Which are these skills that I have developed? And continually, as a full person from when I was in school, how have I grown through the career? So LinkedIn helps with that.
Mm-hmm. Now, as we almost come to a close of our conversation, is the concept being adopted by Workforce Africa for options to full-time employment, laying the basis for the future of employment both locally and globally?
So for us, I think what we're basically doing is building a robust platform. So we are continuing to build a robust platform so that then we can have as many people on it as possible. Because then the value to our customer, who is the company in this case, is they will see value if they can find the people they are looking for in that platform. So the more profiles we have, the more relevant profiles we have in the system, the better it is. So that is really what we are doing. The other major thing that we are doing is taking the opportunity to educate businesses. So how do they set up these projects online? How do they start figuring out how to pay this particular person? How do they even source for the right person and get to know whether they have the right person? And also telling them, removing the concept of boundaries. You don't necessarily have to access this person in the country or in the region. You can do it everywhere, and this person will be able to deliver for you. But really, the bigger change is almost like a mindset that I'm still able to deliver this project with a person who is remote, as the same way I would deliver this project with a person who is local. The other bigger conversation or rather wider conversation that is happening is in terms of just the rules and regulations around taxation, labor laws, do these people get contracts and what terms should be on this kind of contracts. So that's happening at more broader level. But these are the things that we are trying to package for future so that then this can be a mainstream source of talent.
Christopher, finally, will there come a day when organizations will not have full-time employees, or the workforce will not be full-time employees? It's just freelance and gig economy. You do your 2 hours here, you do your 1 hour there, you give your services to whoever can afford wherever is relevant.
I still it's going to continue being a blend. I think organizations still need in-house people. But the percentage of freelance labor will definitely increase. So we'll have more people who are in the organization doing freelance work. As soon as organizations start to realize the level of talent and level of productivity that they can bring into the business, I think freelancing percentages are going to increase. So right now we are talking about, 2%, 1%. I see a situation where at least that number should move to at least 50%. Then that way, the organization can get the benefit of having in-house staff or in-house blended staff and also freelance labor.
Christopher Kimani, MD Workforce Africa, thank you for making time this morning.
All right, Asante.
Okay, we take a short breather. So much more lined up for you on the other side of the break.